Youth Councilor Nog, has my screen gotten any better at lagging, not lagging?
It has.
Okay.
It looks like our streaming server is a little bit behind, so it might be an extra minute here.
Okay, just let us know.
We are now live.
All right, thank you, Keelan. All right, I will call this Tiger City Council meeting to order. Deputy Recorder Raimundo, please call roll.
Council President Lube.
Here.
Councillor Shaw.
Here.
Mayor Snyder.
Here.
Youth Councilor Nog.
Here.
Councillor Goodhouse.
Here.
Councillor Newton.
Here.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Cleary, can you put the flag up on the screen, and I'll ask everyone to mute and participate. All right, thank you, Mr. Cleary. Let's see, council or staff, any non-agenda items? City Manager Reimer, I know you've got one you want to speak on.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor, councils, members of the community, and my teammates. I do want to acknowledge that after we published the agenda last week, we added an item yesterday, which is now item number 6, which is a resolution to consider the waiver of late fees for business licenses. So we just want to acknowledge that that's been added to your agenda for tonight.
All right, thank you. And we will consider that and discuss it later. Important thing to add. Let's move on to public comment. Anyone that wishes to call in should do so now, and we will take your calls in a moment. The phone number to call is 503-966-4101. And again, now would be the time to call for general comments to get in the queue. And with that, we'll go to follow up to previous public comment. Assistant City Manager Nyland.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. There were no public comments received at our last council meeting on February 1st. Fun fact, so as you likely know, the Winter Olympics are underway, hence my red, white, and blue outfit. Games began on February 4th and conclude on the 20th. Beijing will make history as the first city to host both a summer and winter Olympics. Out of the 4 seasons, the Olympics take place during summer and winter. And this year, there are actually 2 athletes representing Team USA with those seasons in their name. We have Summer Pritchard, who's on the luge team, and we have Winter Vanecki, who is an aerial skier. So there are 7 new events in the 2022 Winter Games. More women are competing in this Olympics than ever before with the introduction of mixed team events like snowboard cross relay and freestyle skiing aerials. And brand new to this Olympics is the monobob, like my hairstyle, and that sport is exclusively for women. The U.S. delegation was the 2nd largest team ever for our country. We had 224 athletes representing 31 states, and 5 of those athletes are from Oregon. The next Winter Olympics begin on Friday, February 6, 2026, and Italy won the bid to be the hosting city. That is my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Nyland. And with that, we will move on to a report out from Tigard High School student envoy. We have someone covering, I think Jamie Toda, are you with us?
Yeah, hello. I'm Jamie Toda. I'm the ASB Vice President at Tigard High School. So yeah, I'll just give a little recap about what we have been doing for leadership. So in a couple weeks, we're going to be having a student council meeting where we're just going to get a group of people together and ask for their feedback and their ideas for what our leadership program can be doing for the school. And then as well, our Human Resources Committee is having a cultural day, it's called. So that'll be in like the early spring. We're hoping to have a voices assembly where a bunch of students can share their stories of like what they've been through. And that has always been a really big success for our school because it really just like gets people involved and it makes students feel compassion for one another. So that's something to look forward to. Our community service committee is going to be doing Amazing Race also in the spring. So that'll be a fundraiser for like local and national and regional charities where we'll be raising money for those. And yeah, we're also just trying to make our leadership class more student-led. So that means like me and the ASB president, like really just, you know, teaching our class lessons rather than coming from the advisor. So yeah, that's about it.
Well, thank you for covering tonight. Really appreciate the updates on what's going on at Tigard High School.
Happy to be here. Bye-bye.
All right, have a good evening. All right, we will move on to an update from Chief Mcalpine. You've got your strategic dashboard for January.
I do, and I think Keelan is going to help me out. Good evening, Chief Kathy Mcalpine for Tigard Police. We still got to work on this lineup because I follow a fun fact and some really positive, uplifting vibes from the school, and now I'm going to bring this down to reality a little bit. There's really a lot to report out, so I'm going to go a little bit fast because I do want to cover quite a bit. What I've highlighted in the January dashboard, you can see, is our motor vehicle thefts. We have had a 190% increase from January of 2021 to this January, where we've had a record high of 32 stolen vehicles for the month of January alone. And February is tracking to stay at that high level. What we know is that before I'll do a deeper dive in that, what I want to touch base on the screen that you can see is we also have our thefts have gone up. We are making quite a bit of arrests, as you can see. So we've had some success in holding some people accountable. And then, of course, our dispatch calls for service continue to rise. And a lot of those are concerning our concerning behavior out in the public that has increased our calls for service. Next slide, please. So again, you can see 32 in January from 11 a year ago. Of those 32 stolen, what we do know is that these are generally older model vehicles. They're throughout the city, so not in any clustered or pattern areas. We do know that some of our stolen vehicles, we do have people have abandoned another stolen vehicle that came out of Portland, dropped it off and stole our cars. We do know that we have recovered 14 outside stolens in the city of Tigard in January, and 11 of them were from Portland. Conversely, we know that 14 of our stolen vehicles have been recovered in Portland. So I think you can see the common theme there. Of the 7 arrests that we've made for stolen vehicles, all 7 people are associated to drugs. And then as far as our theft, what we're seeing again is still an uptick in shoplifting. 69 of those, not quite half, are shoplifting. About 18 more are from our catalytic converter thefts, and then just some usual nuisance thefts that also go along with that. Next slide, please. What I do want to bring your attention to is, again, as we see the uptick in crime, but we've also seen an alarming number of firearms. All of these were in 1 week alone. The first one is, it's a Tualatin case, but we assisted, and as you know, there's not much difference between Tiger, Tualatin, and Sherwood. There were, it was a shoplift gone bad, and they escaped, eventually caught in Sherwood, and there were 5 stolen guns out of that traffic stop, and the car was also stolen. And those are tied to a theft in Portland of stolen handguns. The middle picture is from just a routine traffic stop for switch plates. 4 occupants, they decided they didn't want to stick around when we did an inventory of the car to be impounded. This was a gun that was found in the vehicle with, you can see that extended clip. So it's capable of shooting quite a few rounds. And the third one is a shoplift at a mall, and loss prevention made contact. They struggled. Ensuing in that, a gun fell out of the individual's waistband. And that person had extensive history, multiple felony warrants, and was arrested for robbery 1 and felon in possession. And lastly, we responded to another welfare check of an individual slumped over in a car. When we went to try and approach it, we could see visibly a handgun in his lap. When he woke up, he just took off at a high rate of speed. There was extensive damage, and later the vehicle was determined to be stolen. And we have since identified that individual. So you can see that there's nothing routine in our contacts when we're making contact with individuals for what we would consider maybe even misdemeanor crimes. People seem to be arming themselves, and most of them are stolen guns. The last one on a gun came to Tiger to a pawn shop with a scraped off serial number, took off when he got nervous when the clerk was calling us, found it to be also stolen and possibly involved in a couple homicides that are in another jurisdiction. So you can see there's some concerning upticks that we're dealing with. And that was a lot in a fast amount of time. I'll take questions, but the last I do want to share with you is finally February 22nd, we will be having a long overdue chat with the chief from 6 to 7. And I have extended an invite to the Public Safety Advisory Board to join me. And I have 2 of the board members who have taken me up on that invitation. And I look forward to a joint chat with the chief next week. And of course, I'm always willing to answer any questions you may have.
So Chief, I had a conversation, or actually all the mayors had a conversation late last week with DA Barton and Sheriff Garrett, particularly about just capacity at the Washington County Jail and what the impacts are when people aren't going to jail. With that context, I'm curious to know if the robbery 1 with the gun that fell out of the waistband that was sort of the shoplift turned terrible, did that person get lodged?
Yes, and in all fairness to Washington County, we've even seen some of our higher end misdemeanors now being able to lodge them. So that has been helpful. So as Omicron has gone down, we've been able to actually lodge a few more than we have in the past. Also, yes, on our what we call our LEC, the chiefs and sheriffs of Washington County, that includes the DA. We had a robust discussion last week on, we're not the only ones with these stories of people coming from Portland into our counties and doing some pretty heinous stuff. And to include, if you recall, our first homicide of the year was an individual that came out of Portland to do harm here in Tigard. And so we're putting those stories together. I think we're going to have a joint messaging in the near future, but it is very concerning that these individuals are not being held accountable in another jurisdiction, and they know no boundaries, and that's been very concerning for all of us.
Thank you. Youth Councilor Nog.
Okay, I had a really quick question. I was wondering if there was ever like an official briefing on what happened on Saturday night at Washington Square Mall, because I was there at a drive-in movie theater with my friends, and then the entire parking lot just got surrounded by police, and I think there might have even been like search helicopters. So I was wondering if there was any I don't know how to phrase it, but if there was any way for people to know what actually happened, because I was trying to search the news and I did not know what happened.
You know, nothing comes to the top of my head as far as that particular incident. And if there's helicopters and searching, is probably somebody who, you know, I hate to say it sounds routine that we have people that flee and then we do tracks and whatnot, but I'm happy to follow up with you. During the weekday, what we try and do is with our PIO active, we will put it out on social media if we're thinking about something in progress, especially if it's going to impact something like a school or a mall or traffic. On the weekends, generally, we're pretty limited on our staffing, and they're usually focused on the event. So we're still working on maybe the sergeants being able to get something out there, but I'll follow up with you on that just so I can close the loop with you on that.
All right, I think we'll go in order here. Councillor Newton was first, I think, Council President Lube, and then Councillor Shaw. Councillor Newton.
Hey, really quick, Chief, thanks for the robust report. I mean, there's just a lot going on, and the officers have been really busy. So the question I had, though, was around the catalytic converters. Wasn't there something before the legislature to regulate the ease of which those could be sold, or did I miss something on that? Are we trying to make it harder for those to be sold?
Yes, scrap metals and stuff like that, that law went into effect. However, some of the information we received is that they're actually being shipped out of state because, and the metal's so valuable. So that's one of them. I mean, that is a good tool to have, but we do have them transporting these across state lines as well. So it's not going to stop us completely. And again, these are high numbers in Washington County, and they'll go all the way to the Oregon coast and come back along 26 and then just hit a series. And we've made arrests, but again, that property crime, we've had some success in lodging, but earlier on we didn't. And I hope that moving forward, we'll still be able to at least get them identified and get them into this, the jail.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my question, I think, is more generally for the community with so many cars, being stolen. Do you have some tips and recommendations for our community members on what they could do to make their car a little less attractive to steal?
Well, not all, even though this is wintertime, it does not appear to be a problem with people warming up their cars. So that really isn't the problem. The other part of this is on the older vehicles, they have either shave keys or the ability to. So obviously something like the club is very helpful with the steering wheel. I would definitely recommend that. Might even look at a program to maybe purchase them and hand them out. So I can think about that, because I don't think they're real cheap. It's been a while since I've purchased those, but that is then people just have to be motivated to not worry about the inconvenience and do something like that. That would be one that I would do.
Sheriff Garrett has now started putting a club on his own car, and I also learned that the Sherwood police chief has had his same truck stolen twice in the last month.
Yep,
So,
recovered
Council
both
President
times in
Luke,
Portland.
just to add some context there, that's how things are going.
Yeah, we are not immune by any of us.
Yeah, no, but maybe if we can, for those who aren't watching our super exciting council meetings, if we could push out some tips and some recommendations on, hey, there's a lot of cars, being stolen. Here's some tips to maybe make yours less attractive. I think that could be really helpful for a lot of our community members, especially if we have some sort of program where we can help them in some sort of way. Thank you, Chief.
You bet.
Chief, I think Hillsborough PD put out a similar type of thing today. You might, Kelsey may be able to use that for meeting Council President Lube's suggestion there. Councillor Shaw.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief. Perhaps we can extend the program to Sherwood too, since they seem to be having some issues. But Chief, obviously it's hard to follow the 2 positive reports, and I think we almost need to maybe rejigger things. But thank you for the report. Given that Portland, it seems like that seems to be the center, is it just because, and I know I've heard quite a bit of reduction in their police force overall due to retirements, Omicron, and the reduction of just funding capabilities for the city to fund the police? Do you see that if that was increased, could that help solve some of the problems? Because it seems that it is happening to a number of jurisdictions.
That's certainly the starting point when they're only going to these high priority calls. When you have 100, shootings in 1 month, that leaves all the lower level property crimes basically being unattended. My understanding, and this is just from my meeting with the chiefs and sheriffs, is also there's not the follow through at Multnomah County DA's office. So there's going to be probably some asks or pressure in that regards where, as you know, Washington County has always prided themselves in holding people accountable as best they can. And so I think we see a breakdown in a few areas.
Councillor Goodhouse.
Thank you. I agree with what Council President Lube said. Is if we can do some kind of public announcements just to remind people what to do, different things like that. I know behind my business in the parking lot back there that almost a Ford, I think it was a Ford F-350. I think that's one of the hot items. But the person almost had his stolen, but he actually removed this fuse from there so it couldn't be started. Because someone told him that they're being stolen. He goes, oh, whatever, but he still did it. And on the camera, I could see for about 6 minutes, someone in there trying to start it, but with a fuse being taken out there, he couldn't start it. I'm not recommending that everyone take a fuse out of their starter every night, but sometimes you're parking somewhere overnight. But things like lighting, cameras, to get people on camera taking those things. And I don't know for the catalytic converters, I know I mentioned a couple months ago that I saw somewhere in some state that they were having spray painting them so they couldn't go sell them or something. I don't know if that's something that there's any kind of a deterrent of what you can do to the catalytic converter, or if they still just take it out of state and people just take them and there's no way to deter it, whether or not you mark it up or do something to it. But I just thought maybe that might be a way. And the question I had just for maybe people are watching, now that we're having more things happening, and I know downtown Tigard, there was the kind of the announcement going out that there's going to be foot patrol of more officers down there. Just what businesses can do and what they should do, what instances they should, call non-emergency, which ones they shouldn't. Because I hear from a lot of people, they're just not sure what to do and if anything's going to be done. But I try to inform the people I talk to that, with your analytics, that it does help to call because we know where the problem areas are and where more attention needs to be done. And if people aren't calling in, then we don't know where to focus on or what we need for resources to take care of those areas. So that might even be good too, just when we're doing the PSAs, maybe say, in these instances, this is what you should call, this is what you should report and what you should do.
Yeah, those are all, valid points, and it really is going to be a threshold for individuals. What I received most recently is just our unhoused sleeping in doorways, which has been hit and miss, but it's more frequent. What we're going to try and assess, because I don't want to dump completely on Portland, but it also seemed to be at the time that they took the emergency edict of eradicating some of their encampments, and these were several folks that we were not familiar with. And so by making our contacts, we're hopefully going to anecdotally find out where they're from if they choose to talk to us, but definitely try and move them along as businesses are opening for those businesses who ask us to do so. And then the rest is, again, making contact to let them know what resources are out there. I was asked by the local businesses where we're at with the ARPA position of our outreach coordinator. And I'm sure you're due for a report, but we're still in progress in doing that, but we're still probably a couple weeks away from identifying even a temporary person, let alone as it goes through its process. But also we've had robust discussions with Washington County on where their program is. And again, that's probably a report out from the team in the near future. But all of this is kind of coincides with those issues and getting those resources available to our folks.
Youth Councilor Nog.
Yeah, I had a really quick question. How do you know if your catalytic converter got stolen? I don't know much about cars, but I have a feeling ours might have been stolen in fall because we had to get it replaced or something. But how do you know? Or like, is there a way to also prevent it getting stolen?
It is extremely loud. Now, I have not had it happen to me, so I can't say from experience, but I have been told that you will know it when it happens because it is very, very loud. We were hoping manufacturer would come up with some sort of strapping because right now, the way it sits, it is a sawzall, quick bip, bip, and in seconds they're gone. As far as spray painting them, I hadn't heard that because, again, the precious metal inside is what they're going after, and they don't really care about the encasement. But whether that state is saying, hey, we're flagging it, if you take that to a scrap metal place, then that's a flag where we have laws and trying to avoid it that way. So you can see it's not just unique to Oregon, and everybody, just like the copper thefts when they were high, is everybody tries to look at preventative ways to try and slow this down.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Very important information for our community, I think, and some important dialogues. And I think, you know, if the council can be helpful, particularly on some of these things that have dramatically increased in frequency, we want to know about that, whether it's buying some clubs or whatever it may be for the community, or education and whatever it is. If you need resources, please let us know. And I feel there's probably, as you said, a broader conversation. It sounds like that the police chiefs and the sheriff and the DA are planning to have. I think there may very well be an elected official push on that front too. So based on my conversations late last week, I would not be surprised about that.
Yes, and I appreciate I don't take it for granted, the opportunity to have FaceTime with all of you once a month. I think these are very important dialogues, even though they're very quick. And you heard it first tonight. Thank you, Assistant City Manager Nyland, that if we do a outreach of join the club and then hand out some clubs, that might help us out. But you heard it first here on that slogan, join the club.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is a report out from the Tigard Area Chamber of Commerce. Do we have Membership and Engagement Manager Love with us?
Yes. Good evening, Council. Nice to see you all. Our Leadership Tigard class met last week, and they learned about our local government. We had a wide group of City of Tigard staff participating in that day, and also Mayor Snyder. So thank you all that participated in that day. We heard very positive remarks from the class. And then they are going to be learning about education in STEM in March. So we're super excited for that day. And the class has decided on their class project this year, and we're excited to have them partner with the City of Tigard's chart committee for their group project. So we'll announce more details as they come out on that. And then we have, for upcoming events, we have our Bowl-O-Rama that's taking place on March 5th at Tigard Bowl. We have our Tigard Shining Stars Community Awards Gala on Friday, April 29th. And so we're still accepting nominations for our Business and Community Awards. The deadline is March 11th for that. And then our high school senior scholarship application is due March 10th by 4 p.m. at the Tigard Chamber office. We have partnered with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce to host a hiring expo that will take place, I believe, in Hillsborough on March 6th. And it's from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. It's going to be split between the morning session is going to be for students. And so we've partnered with the Tigard 12th School District. And then the evening is going to be or afternoon, I should say, is going to be for adults. And if a business is interested in participating, booths are now available for Tigard Chamber members, and then starting April 1st, it will be opened up for the general business community after that. And then our candidate endorsement committee is currently working through our processes for the May primary Washington County Commissioner at Large / Chair position, and then the Metro Council President position as well. We host networking every single Thursday at 7:30. We're still alternating between in-person and virtual. And this week we're going to be in person at Reset Button Arcade in the downtown area. And then for the farmers market, vendor applications are now open for our 30th season. We have also opened up our applications for the community booth and then music at the market booth. We're looking at about 25 vendors right now with a good mixture of returning and new. And then we hope to have the Farm to Table event come back this year. It's tentatively scheduled for Friday, July 29th. And then for Downtown Tigard, we have our Downtown Tigard Mixer at Tigardville Station tomorrow night, Wednesday, from 5 to 7 p.m. And then we have 3 new businesses that have opened up in downtown area. We have Ultra Botanical Boutique, Reset Button Arcade, and then Tacos Tenexpa, that have all opened up within the downtown area. And then coming soon, we'll have the 2022 Art Walk information and also possibly a wine walk in addition to that event. Any questions I can answer for you all?
You got some curiosity there on the wine.
Wine? What? No.
I didn't want it.
Jessica, the Farm to Table event was really fun, so that will be great if that comes back. And then the Shining Stars is on my calendar. Is that that's not remote this year, right? It's in person.
That is the plan, is to be back into person at the embassy seats at Washington Square. And then Farm to Table, I'm really hoping comes back this year. I love that event. So
that was great.
What is the date on Shining Stars?
It is Friday, April 29th. And it's going to be from 5:30 to about 9 p.m.
Okay.
Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate the updates.
Yes. Have a good
And
night.
we will move on to written public comments. Deputy City Recorder Raimundo, I don't think I actually saw any written comments. Am I correct about that?
That's correct, Mayor. There was no written comments received by noon today.
All right, we'll move on to phone-in public comment. Mr. Cleary, do we have anyone in the queue?
We do have one caller in the queue.
All right, please put them through.
Hello, my name is Roger Potoff, and my address is 11710 Southwest Ann Street. And I'm calling this evening in follow-up to a conversation that I had with Mayor Snyder and Councilor Goodhouse regarding the possibility of there being updates made to the Tigard nuisance code. And I am intending to submit written comments. I didn't realize, I thought tonight was going to be just a working session and the public would not be included, but that's my mistake. I will, by your next meeting, have submitted written comments relating to the nuisance code, in particular, those codes relating to the keeping of chickens and fowl and livestock, and then also rat harborage or habitat. But I want to thank again Mayor Snyder for listening to me, and also to Councilor Goodhouse for his response to my inquiry. And we had a good conversation regarding this, and it says his suggestion that I will be preparing written comments and looking to follow up with council. I can assure you that this is a very important issue in some parts of the city. And I've been told by people expert in this area that with respect to rats, it's growing to a point where it's a public health issue. So I'll leave it at that. And I appreciate your good efforts as the city council and the supporting staff. Ken Ross in the nuisance code enforcement has been very supportive, but he's one man, and we need to get that code updated. And I think we'll all be enjoying a better life here in Tigard. So I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
And Mr. Potoff, thank you for calling in. And we appreciate your feedback. And I think as I shared on the phone, there's active work that's beginning on this code already. And I will also share, I will, just in fairness to the council, I actually went out and drove to physically look at what Mr. Potoff was referring to. I took a couple pictures that were pretty, I'll just say they were shocking to me about what can happen when we change enforcement of codes. And so I will email that to the rest of the council so you can at least see what I saw and not have to drive out there yourself and just get a sense of what may be going on in some areas. I think we made a very well-intentioned decision and direction a few years ago to have staff stop enforcing parts of the livestock, or particularly the chicken aspects of the code. But I definitely don't think what is happening near Mr. Potoff's property is what we had in mind. So I will just leave it at that. It's not a 9-year-old with a couple chickens, which is what we were kind of deliberating on and provided direction on about 3 or 4 years ago. So Mr. Potoff, thank you. And staff, if it's appropriate to follow up, I think it'd be good to make sure that Mr. Potoff's feedback, if he provides it in writing, gets to the teammates in community development that are working on the code revisions in this area. All right, let's see. City Manager Reimer, did you want to say something? Sorry about that.
I was just going to acknowledge that we will do absolutely what you suggested there, Mayor, work with our teammates in community development.
Okay. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda is used for routine items, including minutes and approval of contracts or intergovernmental agreements. Information on each item is available on the city's website in the packet for this meeting. These items may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Council members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Let's see, tonight we are considering amending an intergovernmental agreement with Tigard-Tualatin School District and to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. City Attorney Rahala, are you actually presenting on the consent agenda, or are you just available for questions?
No, Council, I'm just available for questions.
Okay. All right. So, Council, any comments, questions? Council President Lube?
I didn't have any questions. I was just going to move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? City Recorder, a roll call vote, please.
Council President Lube?
Yes.
Councillor Shaw?
Yes.
Mayor Snyder?
Yes.
Councillor Goodhouse?
Yes.
Councillor Newton?
Councillor Newton, I don't think we heard I didn't hear your vote.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Did you hear it? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Consent agenda is adopted unanimously. Thank you. And we will move on to receiving a briefing and providing direction on city facilities consolidation. Public Works Director Rager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm Brian Rager, Public Works Director, and the purpose of my visit tonight is to give you a quick update regarding the Public Works portion of a much larger project and to seek direction from you as to how we move forward. As you know, I'm part of a larger city team who've been working together on the City Facilities Consolidation, or CFC, project that would result in the city reducing its building footprint and allowing redevelopment of the current City Hall Permit Center site. One of the key initial steps is that the project is for Public Works to get moved. We need to find property that would allow us to consolidate our operations onto one site. And moving PW out of the downtown area is good for a few reasons. two main ones. Public Works is not really a great fit for the downtown, just given our more industrial type of use. And secondly, moving Public Works out gives the potential for redevelopment of our current site for a future multi-story city hall. So our team's been working diligently with a real estate broker, that's Capacity Commercial Group, over the last 2+ years in finding a suitable site. We've also been working with Scott Edwards and Associates Architects. They put together a space needs analysis for us and a space program that aided us in searching for properties. And thus far, as you know, the team's been unsuccessful in finding the right site because of the limited availability of sites and interested sellers. Over the course of the last couple of years, the team and the council have considered options ranging from condemnation to a build-to-suit option with a long-term lease, and also looking at properties outside of the city boundaries. And the council's provided really good direction for our team to find a site where both the city and the owner can negotiate a mutually acceptable purchase and sale agreement. So our team's put together quite a bit of thought on this and a lot of effort. And after some discussion with our project consultants, who have a lot of experience in a wide variety of project delivery solutions, it was suggested that the city consider a different approach for this project, a public-private partnership, or P3. Recently, Tuolumne Valley Fire and Rescue had a very positive experience when they went to a P3 to help deliver their fleet and building maintenance facility down in Tualatin. After several years of an unsuccessful search for property on their own, the district chose a P3 arrangement, and in that scope, it included property acquisition, construction of the property, and finally, delivery of the project to the district. A P3 can be structured in many ways, but the main idea here is that the city can benefit from the experience, knowledge, and resources available to a private company in order to deliver the project. Some of the benefits of P3 are shared risk, more certainty of price, that you'll hear guaranteed maximum price thrown around in that context, possible alternative financing options that might be of interest to the city. They'd have access and knowledge of properties maybe not on the market. Private sector knowledge and relationships is another benefit. Overall, we think that they would be much better equipped to manage multiple properties, multiple property owners, in order to assemble a site that would meet the city's needs for a public works facility. So based on our experience so far with this project over the last few years, our recommendation is to work toward a P3 arrangement. We believe it's worth the effort to explore. We think it can get this project moving. If the council agrees, we would like some direction tonight to move toward a P3. I know in my report, I mentioned that the next step would be an RFP to select a team. Actually, what we would need a step ahead of that, and that would be to go through a selection process where we would acquire an owner's representative. An owner's rep on a project like this, really important. They would come in, they would be our team's representative throughout the life of the project. We would also look to this individual to write the scope for the RFP for selecting the team. We lack that experience and lack that capacity currently in-house. So that's the end of my report and my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
And you're looking, Mr. Rager, you're looking for direction from the council about whether this is the approach or an approach we'd like to proceed with, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So questions from the council? Is everybody clear on what is I mean, there was a description of it, but it was not, it was pretty abstract potentially. If people have more sort of focused questions, or maybe using the TVF&R example to sort of explain it may be helpful. But what questions or thoughts do people have? Council President Lube?
Can we explain it a little bit more in depth with the TVF&R example?
Sure, I'll do my best. We had the opportunity to visit that project, and the way that one worked is so an RFP goes out to look for a team, and I could see our approach being very similar, where we, in the scope, you describe the problem. What is it that you're trying to achieve? And in TVF&R's case, part of their problem was, hey, we can't find a site. So they put that into the scope. So the way it worked, as we understand it in talking with their project team, the contractor team, that it wasn't just contractor, let me back up one. So the team usually consists of designer and contractor together with an owner's rep in the mix. And that team together is brought on right up front, so that as properties are looked at and it's ultimately selected, then you get into design work, and the contractor is part of those conversations the whole time, because you can benefit from their knowledge of constructability issues, pricing issues, and that team working together leads to that more certainty of price, where everybody can agree that on a guaranteed maximum price earlier in the process. So then there's less risk for the city, or in that case, the TVF&R, of knowing how much they were going to have to pay for that total project. So getting a little more into what happened with them. The contractor, in that case, it was Emmerich Construction. They were the lead contractor on that one. And I'm blanking in the moment on the designer, but the contractor actually had the resources to go out and look for properties. They used their own broker, if you will, and their team found properties for the district to consider. The specific property they found was one where there was an existing business there. And as I understand it, Emmerich was able to work a deal with that business. They actually relocated that business somewhere else, found another site for them, which freed up the warehouse in.
Mr. Rager, I think we may have.
I apologize if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay now?
We can, and you were talking about the warehouse, and we heard that.
Okay.
You then
I
they
just
then
saw yeah, okay. If that happens again, I'll just try to shut my camera off, and hopefully that'll help. So they relocated that business and then remodeled the building for the district's purposes. And at the end of the day, it was a turnkey procedure. They built out the project, delivered it to the district.
So, Mr. Rager, just to kind of, I think this may help clarify the sort of the approach here a little bit, is the general concept would be that we define what we need, generally where it needs to be, what it needs to look like, and a maximum price we're willing to pay. And then the job of whoever we end up working with is to deliver that.
Yes, the price issue, we wouldn't name that right out of the gate, because that's that team approach. We get to a guaranteed maximum price, and it's at that point, when we see that is the price that that team has to deliver the project.
Okay, so
But yeah,
there's
everything you said is
okay. So what I said was a little oversimplification around the pricing at the beginning, but the rest of it is, I mean, that's the general concept. We have someone, we tell them what we want, we tell them to, and they agree to go. They have more expertise, and frankly, they can, in some cases, do things that as a city we can't do, and they go make it happen. And then we are really buying kind of an almost like an off-the-shelf type of item from them. And I think was first, then Councillor Shaw, then Council President Lube.
I think you said I was next, so you cut out a little, Mr. Mayor, so I'll go for it. Mr. Rager, thank you very much. That helped. What I hear you saying too, though, is that the P3 approach might yield properties that we have not been able to uncover. So that's one of the benefits of the P3 approach. In your example, they found a warehouse that could be retrofitted or whatever they did, relocate the business. And so they have some abilities or expertise or whatever in that regard that that we may not have been able to, properties we may not have been able to uncover. Is that what you're saying? That was where I got tripped up, is what's the benefit in terms of being able to locate properties. So thanks.
Right. That's correct, Councilor Newton. What we hear is that, it's one thing for if the city comes knocking on the door and say, hey, we want to buy your property, that's taken one way. But it's different if a private company is coming along trying to work out a deal on behalf of the city. It is received differently as we understand it.
Shaw, were you saying, from your hand signals, I wasn't sure. Are you next? No. Council President Lube, sorry.
That's okay. I think the memo and this presentation has really focused well on the possible upsides of, the potential of having this work out. But I'd like to know, what are the concern areas and the areas of risk that the city would face, shifting and going in this direction instead?
Sure. The risks for the city could be that even the private company has a hard time finding a property. That is a risk. We think they've got a better shot at it, but that we do have to acknowledge is a risk. The other thing I would say, going with a P3 should not be looked at as a way of getting the project done cheaper. It probably will not be a cheaper project overall, because when there's shared risk in a project, that's one where the price would probably be higher than if we were able to find a site on our own. But since we haven't been able to, then we're suggesting that we look at this. Those are the things that I think about there.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. I had actually a very similar question to Council President Lube, which was what would the risks be? But from an upfront cost perspective, what does that look like hiring the designer as well as a owner's rep? Is there a ballpark cost to that? That's the first question. Then the second is there a long-term lease cost or any payback mechanism that you mentioned could incur that this project ends up being more expensive? And if so, can you quantify that?
I can't really quantify on the owner's rep. I haven't worked a project where we've had an owner's rep. I know we have one on the Reservoir 18 project, and off the cuff, I don't know what that contract amount looks like. But like any consultant, you can imagine that we're probably talking in the $100,000 or more range over time. As far as the second part of your question, I think was on maybe cost saving measures on the project if it's higher. Could you clarify your question one more time?
Yeah, not necessarily cost savings. What does it cost using maybe even the TBFR as an example? Did they have longer term costs? Was there payback remedies for that? Did it go over a certain amount of years so it enabled or meant that the project was going to be more expensive?
I'm not sure. I would have to check back with them. But that did, your question actually prompted something that I probably flew by it in my presentation, but I mentioned potential alternate financing options that could come out of a P3. What we were told by Emmerich, and we've talked with a variety of contractors over the last couple of years. Sometimes there can be ways of funding a project where the city wouldn't have to pay for it all at once. One example is there could be a short-term lease option where the city makes payments to the contractor for a finite period of time, and then we would own it at the end. So there's things like that that could come out of a process like this. We just won't know until we actually see how teams respond and what they propose as an approach.
All right, other questions, or are we ready to provide? I feel like we've asked a lot of questions. I don't feel like we've provided any direction yet. Council, I'm looking at all you. So any further questions or direction? Council President Loop.
Yeah, I was trying to both raise my hand virtually and in real life. I think, this is something where this is a new relationship and a new way of doing things, and I'd feel comfortable moving forward to explore it and understand a little bit more about the costs and those sorts of things. I feel like this is too big of a project and too big of a financial ask for me to be like, yeah, let's jump on the bandwagon. Let's go and let's do this. It feels like that would be an irresponsible decision. So I would feel comfortable moving forward to find some more information out and move along in the process, and to continue to move forward, but it's not a full green light for me. I just don't feel like we have enough sort of information or understanding of the cost structure to get fully on board.
So Council President Lube, just to clarify, because I think this will be helpful for Mr. Rager, I'm assuming you want to know how much is the owner's rep part of this going to cost? What does TVF and R estimate the overage or the amount they paid over what they would have otherwise, to get an idea of what sort of the incremental cost difference might be to trying to do, again, realizing we may not be able to do it on our own. So frankly, the cost difference there may not actually be a comparison if it's nothing versus a project getting done, but I understand your point about that probably. What other data points or information would you want to know to be prepared? It sounds like you're saying, yes, let's proceed with exploring it, bring back numbers, let's see what it looks like. Is that what you're saying to Mr. Rager?
Yes.
Okay, Councilor Goodhouse.
What Council President Lube said was what I was thinking similarly too, is it's kind of a lot of information, kind of a little bit of a pivot on where we're going. So kind of do exploratory on this, see what the options are, a little more detail, and then give us some updates along the way as far as what it's looking like, where this could go, rather than just jumping full speed in this direction. Let's get a little more information and come back and give us little updates along the way, or talk about it more before we fully go that direction. But kind of get a little more information and give us a little more in-depth details. But you're willing to allow it to be explored? Yeah, move forward on the exploration and just give us updates along the way.
Councillor Newton and Councillor Shaw, do you have more that you want to add, or do you just want to give a thumbs up, proceed as suggested? And Youth Councillor Nog, do you have anything? Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Perhaps also the designer costs could be included, and Emmerich has a very good reputation, so I have confidence that they could provide quite a bit of the details as far as costs go, but I too would give a green light for the exploration.
Councillor Newton.
And this, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may be obvious, Mr. Rager, but I'm also looking at, okay, next step, we bring the owner's rep, the contractor. What does that look like? What are they doing? You know what I mean? Somebody's going to do the scope of work, but what's the next step we're committing to? You know, we're going to get an owner's rep on board and a contractor, and what's that going to look like? And what are we signing? You know, and what's our agreement there? What's our commitment? So yeah, I'm fully in support of exploring it, but I think we need a little bit more information about how the pieces come together. So thanks.
Okay.
Youth Councilor Nog, do you have anything to add on this front?
I'm not the most educated about building codes and everything, so my apologies, but I do agree that maybe doing a little bit more research is good.
Okay.
But I will work on researching on my own time as well.
Thank you. And City Manager Reimer, I guess I want to check with you about the concept and location that I had shared with you privately that might involve another public entity. Has that information been given to Mr. Rager?
Yes, it has. Yeah, we've had a conversation.
Okay. All right. I just, that seems like a possible last ditch attempt before we proceed with this. So I would just want to know whether that's even remotely viable or not.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Mr. Mayor, if I may make just a couple comments on P3s.
Sure.
One thing, P3s, as I think many of you have alluded to, Mr. Rager can take many different forms. One of the classic examples that's been used the last decade now is what the city of Long Beach, California did when they built a new library, new civic campus, new Port Authority space in exchange for development of housing in their downtown. In that case, the agreement that they entered into was financing it, designing it, building it, and maintaining it for a number of years. And so that's one example. And I think one of the things we'll do as a team is engage with a few resources that we have to talk about different examples of P3 partnerships. We have a great opportunity with the entire CFC project potentially. So we'll also have a broader conversation on that may inform then the council with some of the information you're looking at from a broader standpoint of P3s, as well as some of the details about what Mr. Rager has shared.
Thank you. Looks like the council is excited about that. Multiple members. All right. Brian, do you feel like you have the direction you need for tonight?
I do. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And more to come on that. Let's move on to item number 5, which is to consider a resolution to waive business license late fees for 2022. And we have Ms. Lutz with us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm coming to you as we did last year to consider waiving the business license late notice fees, which is 10% of a business's business license fees. We did this last year for part of our COVID relief plan, and I wanted to check to see if you were wanting to do the same thing this year. So just a little bit of information for you. Right now, there's about 650 businesses that have yet to pay their license fees, ranging, from one employee up to, there's not too many businesses, larger businesses that have not already paid. But it's about $13,000 of late fee revenue that we would lose. So if everybody paid their license late fee. So that's where we are.
And the staff recommendation is that, I love this. The staff recommendation is that we do approve this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Shaw, you have a question or a comment or want to make a motion?
Just a question. Are they late just due to timing? Like, has it been 5 days? Has it been 2 months? Do you anticipate some of those will end up paying, so it'll be a smaller amount?
I do anticipate some will pay. A lot of businesses, this has been happening the whole year. Everybody's working from home. They go and get their mail every couple of months sometimes. And so a lot of them haven't even received the renewals because they just don't check their mail or it gets lost. So that's kind of another caveat to this whole thing. Some of them are out of business and just haven't let us know that they're out of business yet. So those are mainly smaller businesses in that category. But the notices go out towards the end of October, early November.
Thank you very much. And I would support it, just for the record.
Do you want to, well, I guess we'll let Councillor Newton ask a question, and then Councillor Shaw, if you want to make a motion, you're welcome to. But Councillor Newton, question?
I don't have a question really. I just want to thank you, Ms. Lutz, for being proactive and bringing this to our attention because we do really want to try to help the business community. And so I just wanted to thank you for being proactive and bringing this to our attention. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Newton.
Councillor Newton took my line. All right. Councillor Goodhouse?
Yeah, I echo what's being said. Is I appreciate that we're doing this, and it can be hard for businesses, or even if they get busy, maybe they didn't check their mail and look at it. And I was just going to make a little joke. I mean, it might be that typo on the 6 to 11 employees that shot up that maybe people aren't paying it.
I can't believe you are doing that to me.
All right, Council President Lou.
I was going to make a motion to approve resolution number 22-03.
Councillor Shaw, you want to second that?
Certainly. I'll second the motion.
All right. And City Recorder, read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 22-03, a resolution waiving late fees for City of Tigard business licenses through December 31st, 2022.
And a roll call vote.
Council President Lube,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Youth Councillor Nog,
Yes.
Councillor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councillor Newton,
Yes.
All right, resolution 22-03 is adopted unanimously. Thank you, and
Thank
appreciate
you.
the prep work and all that you put into that.
No problem. Thank you very much.
All right, let's see. We don't have any additional non-agenda items, I don't think. City Manager Reimer, administrative report.
Well, good evening again, and thanks to Liz as well for bringing that forward tonight and for the council support and continuing to support our local businesses. So we appreciate that. A few things. I have some late breaking news from the police chief today. We received a $1,600 check from the Tigard Breakfast Rotary Club, which is great to hear. It's their annual K9 Doggy Dash that was held virtually this year, but they raised the same amount as money. So kudos to them and thanks to them for continuing to support our police department and us as a city in general. On the budget theme, we're continuing down the path of developing the fiscal year 2023 budget. Thanks to the team for continuing to bring forward their recommendations. We are now at the phase where we are meeting with the departments. So the budget team, as well as the department heads and anyone that they choose to join us, are just talking through their budget recommendations to advance our budget priority, the strategic plan, your council goals, and many of the initiatives that we have in progress today, like our DEI work, our total Tyler work, and some things like that. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention that the progress is being made, and we're still aiming for that early April distribution of the proposed budget to all of you in the budget committee. A couple other updates is we have our Tigard Triangle mobility study planning that will be underway here, and that's really to understand how people are getting around in the Triangle. We will have a survey that will then be used to help us as we look at equitable transportation and other policies and investments that we make in the future. On a similar note, we have our downtown parking study team continuing to meet. They'll be meeting again next week on the 24th. This is comprised of city teammates, downtown businesses, and community members to go through the parking study that we just completed, ultimately to come forward with a recommendation to all of you on looking at how we are managing our parking supply and demand downtown. So we're still a few months off on that, but I just want to let you know those conversations are continuing. And so the next one is next week. And then just to, I always try to end on a good note is we've been talking a great deal about our library cards that all TTSD students are getting. And so this week, our great library team has shared some comments from our youth. And so I'm just going to read a few to you if you don't mind, because I think it just really puts in light how important things like this are. So a kindergartner from Metzger came in this week with his new library card. He was so excited to be at the library. They said, "I love this library so much, and I'm going to miss you when I leave." He was so excited to share everything about what he found and they checked out. Another kindergartner at Metzger got her student library card in the mail and couldn't wait to go to the library today, whenever today was. She was so thrilled. She came in to take a photo with the check out some books, and she'd been waiting in the mail and watching the mail for her card to arrive, and so immediately went to the library. And then the last one is another patron shared that although she lives in Multnomah County, she often uses our system and comes to the Tigard Library because we have such a great collection of Spanish books for her daughter to read. And so, you know, it's something that we talk about, but others are realizing that. And so thank you to the library team for their enthusiasm and their support for our community and community members from throughout the region for utilizing our library. Thanks for your support in making sure those things happen there. And those conclude my remarks this evening.
City Manager Reimer, is there a way to maybe within, I don't know, 6 to 12 months, sort of figure out how many materials were checked out on those new cards that were issued? I think that'd be really interesting to know, you know, how many things got distributed that, you know, possibly would never have gone out the door and been used by individuals from this effort. I just, from a measurement and data perspective, I would be interested in that. Is that possible, do you think?
I'm not certain yet, but I will follow up with our library team and get back to all of you and let you know if we can track that.
Okay. Thank you. And with that, I think we're ready for a motion for adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn, Mayor.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Council President Lube,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Councillor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councillor Newton,
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Good night, Tigard.
Night, Tigard.